right, everybody, welcome back to today's episode of Chasing Frets. And if you tuned in on Monday, you know that our guest this week is Joey Landreth, and I'm joined this week also by Andy Ellis.
Hello there from a rainy old Nashville.
So today's episode, we are going to be talking about one of Joey's all-time favorite guitar heroes, and that's Lowell George of Little Feat. And to me, like, I was a late bloomer to Little Feat. I first heard the album, it's an album from the 90s. It had Rad Gumbo on it and Texas Twister. And I remember I had that cassette, and I just kept flipping it over in my car, you know. And then later on, I had to go back and dig into the early records. And I really probably, this might be blasphemy, but I didn't really gain a deep appreciation for Little Feat until after I heard Fish play Waiting for Columbus.
How interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
And,
that's cool.
You know, they do the thing on Halloween where they play a different record. And so one of the years they did Waiting for Columbus. And I was a pretty big Fish fan by that time. I'd seen him a couple times. But after hearing them do that, it dawned on me how much of their rhythmic feel, how much of Fish's rhythmic feel, and even kind of modern jam bands, how the roots of that can be traced back to that rhythm section on those early records.
Wow.
So we're going to hit it. Joey has a list of his favorite Little Feat tunes that we're going to go down, and he even talks about a forthcoming tribute project that he has in the works that I've been picking his brain about for years, and I'm hoping it comes out sooner rather than later. But let's get to today's episode with Joey Landreth. All right, welcome back to another episode of Chasing Frets. We're here again with our guest this week, Joey Landreth, and today we are going to talk about the magic that is Lowell George, who I know is a pretty prime influence on you, right, Joey?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me about the revelation you had when the first time you heard Lowell.
Well, it's interesting because the first time I heard Lowell George would have been at the hand of my parents. My parents were really, really big Little Feat fan, and I'll be perfectly honest. I did not get it when I first heard it. You know, as a kid, it was just like Little Feat and Ry Cooder. This was weird music my parents liked. And it wasn't until I was a little bit older and people started to kind of say, hey, when you sing, you kind of sound a little bit like Lowell. And I was like, wow, no, probably not. I mean, I like him, I guess. But what I kind of pieced together is that my dad was this massive Lowell fan, and he sounds like Lowell George when he sings. Like, it was certain choices that he makes. And my dad was my first hero, and I kind of feel like I sound like my dad when I sing. So, you know, kind of by osmosis. But it wasn't until I was probably we were already in the Brothers Landreth, keeping pretty busy, and we threw on, I don't know, Feats Don't Fail Me Now or something, and it was in that moment when I realized, oh man, we are channeling these guys, and I didn't even realize it. Like, just a lot of the sort of field choices and the way that both Dave and I play together is just like, we didn't, I wouldn't have even said that I was a fan until I realized that I was sort of subconsciously. And then I fell deeply in love with that music, that catalog. And the same thing happened with Ry Cooder, where I just kind of went back and heard all these things for the first time, you know, or not for the first time, but appreciated them for the first time. And I don't know, the genius of Lowell George is, I mean, his guitar playing is obviously brilliant and so unique, but to me, my favorite thing about him is his voice and his writing, and just the things that he writes about and how he writes about them and how he delivers it when he sings, and his guitar playing is kind of the same thing. It's just like there's nothing extra. There's just what you need to get the point across, and there's something like incredibly there's an incredible lesson to be learned from his guitar playing. I don't know, it's kind of hard to put into words exactly.
That's so interesting to me how late you came to that revelation. Like you said, you had already kind of been in this band with your brother, you know, and it wasn't like you were teenagers at the time, you know, and it just kind of all washed upon you at once. Did you go through the phase where you tried a Craftsman socket as a slide?
Yeah, I have. I can't really quite get them on my I can't quite get it on my finger. My fingers are kind of fat. They're short and fat, so it just never really quite fit. But yeah, absolutely. And we were on tour back in, I don't know, I want to say 2016 or 2017, and we were in Cleveland, and we stopped at the Hall of Fame, or is that in Columbus?
It's Cleveland.
Cleveland, yeah. And got to see his guitar, like the red Lowell jacket that says Lowell on it, and one of his slides, and it was like that, and they had one of Stevie's guitar, I think it was Butter or Lenny, one of Stevie Ray Vaughan's guitars, and they were like in the same display, and it was like I wept. It was just like to see those instruments was incredibly important. Yeah.
What do you use? If you don't use a socket
Yeah.
wrench?
No, I use a slide made by a company out of Washington State called the Rock Slide. And
Oh, yeah. I've got some of those.
yeah, I love them. I stumbled across them years ago. But again, back in my side person days, I was in Nashville for a month with an artist that I was playing with, and we were down there writing. And on a day off, I went to Groon's Guitars and tried not to buy anything, but I left with a few slides, and they made a really big difference. And then almost immediately, I lost them. And the only dealers in Canada were in Vancouver or in Toronto, and I'm in Winnipeg, literally right in between those two places. And there's like 26-hour drive to Vancouver, 23-hour drive to Toronto. So it's like, I'm not gonna get one of these. So I reached out. I emailed Danny at the Rock Slide and said, "Hey man, I'm in a pickle. I fell in love with your slides and I can't get them here." And so he sent me a bunch. And we've been friends ever since. And then as soon as the brothers had a record, I sent him a copy of it. And he didn't listen to it for like a year and a half, and then called me one day. It's like, "Man, I feel like such a dick. I just listened to your record and I really, really like it." I was like, "Hey, right on. Well, I'm glad you listened to it." And he was the very first person that I worked with, sort of in any kind of sort of artist deal capacity. He was always really, really quick to respond, really, generous. Like I would order 10 slides and he'd send 20, things like that. He was just a really, really great guy. So, and then shortly after he finally listened to my record, he said, "Let's do a signature slide." And so that's what this is. I've been using the same one. It's slightly longer than their small slide. And it's the first prototype was the same length as the medium slide, but it was a little too long. And this is just this is what I've been using exclusively. He also makes glass slides, but I really favor the brass, so that's what I'm using.
Is it open on both ends?
Yes. Yeah. The audience at home can't see. I held the slide up to the camera so you could see through it.
Yes, I could see right through it. It's Shotgun Shack, only circular.
Yeah.
So to prep for this episode, Joey, I gave you the homework of giving me your 5 top Little Feat Lowell George tunes.
Yeah.
And I want to hit that list, and for each one, I want you to tell me kind of what strikes you the most about that, and what you pull out of Lowell's playing and singing or writing from that tune. So the first tune on your list, and I don't know if these are in any kind of order, but is All That You Dream.
Yeah. Well, and I also want to add that these were just the first 5 songs that came to my mind. Like, I love all of them equally, but All That You Dream, I just feel it rocks so hard.
That phaser,
It's awesome. And Little Feat has a way of rocking so hard at slow tempos. Like it just thumps. And I love his singing. It's absolutely effortless. He comes out of the gate, singing. I think it's
the first
an E.
line.
Yeah, he sings it's like high G sharp, which is not a crazy note, but it's just like he never runs out of steam on that whole track. And he sang that in one take. Like there's no comping. I can't imagine. And just like the playing, the arrangement, like the bridge has got all those really great chords. Like just really, really nice stuff. So I don't know. I love everything about it. And Linda Ronstadt's on it. So
Yeah. Which version do you prefer, a studio or Waiting for Columbus?
I love the record version.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people would probably scoff at, because I don't think that the last record album it's not universally loved across Little Feat fandom. There's a documentary on Netflix about Lowell, and there's like a music historian who's like a big Little Feat fan, and at the end of the documentary, he talks about what he believes to be the worst Little Feat records, and they're all my favorite Little Feat records. He's like, this record, what a piece of junk. Lowell was checked out. He did, his solo record, what a waste of time. I was like, I love those albums.
That's why we play guitar and we're not historians.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right. Next on the list is one I had to go revisit was Rock and Roll Doctor.
Oh man, my dad has always said that that lyric, 2 degrees in bebop, a PhD in swing. He has my entire life said that's the best lyric in rock and roll, best lyric ever written. I think somebody else famous said that, but so that one is just like
one.
It's a good lyric, and I think that song just has family ties. So it's just like it's beyond do I like it? It's just a part of my it's part of my history.
Now, side note, have you heard Black Sabbath Rock and Roll Doctor? And could you compare and contrast?
I can't say that I can.
Oh.
Did they? Is it the
they
same
didn't
song?
cover it, but they have. I was
they have a
searching
song
for it
called Rock and
today,
Roll
and it was
Doctor,
like
yeah.
the next one on. And after I got to listen to the Little Feat version, it went right into. It was like the last Sabbath record Ozzy was on.
Right.
I was kind of like in the back of my mind because I was not familiar with the tune. I was like, oh, maybe they did cover it, and I was like, no, it's a different song.
Oh, that's funny. Like Humble Pie doing I don't need no doctor. Yeah. They also did Hallelujah, I Love Her So. I think they did a version of that as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next one, which to me, my favorite Little Feat songs that Lowell does are the ballads, and Long Distance Love is way up there.
Oh man,
Come on.
such a great song. Yeah, I don't know.
Have you covered any of these songs in Landreth, Brothers Landreth stuff?
No, yes. Well, and I'm in the process. It's about to turn 3 years old, but I'm in the process of making a Lowell George tribute record or tribute EP.
Yes, we've talked about this before.
And some of these songs that we've mentioned may or may not be on there. Oh man. Long Distance Love, man, what a great song. Hello, give me missing person.
All right, and then probably the biggest hit on the list here is Staples' Dixie Chicken.
Yeah.
Which to me, what struck me most interesting, not most interesting, but interesting than maybe any of the other tunes in the Feat catalog is the form.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's the thing about Lowell's writing is like
It's
the arrangements are never symmetrical, ever.
it's never an equilateral triangle.
No.
It always has edges and corners.
A great example of that is he on his solo record, which I can't believe I actually didn't mention in this list because it's probably one of my favorites. That's what I mean. You know.
Put it in. What is it?
Is What Do You Want the Girl to Do, the Alain Toussaint tune. And his arrangement of that, and I haven't actually listened to the original recording of it. There's a number of recordings of that song. But like, when I wrote the chart out for it for the band when we recorded it, it was like, A1, B1, C1, D1, chorus. A2, B2, and they were all different lengths, different turnarounds. I mean, Long Distance Love, the first verse and the second verse have completely different chord changes, completely different.
Ugh.
So it's just like he was not worried about conventional songcraft. He was just chasing the muse, and it didn't matter if it made the song 7 minutes long. It was like when you try to shorten those sections, it's just like you can't do it.
I in a way, I feel like Steely Dan is kind of the same way. It's
Yeah.
like they didn't have a set chorus verse framework. They said we're gonna put the next part of the song is what we feel the next part of the song should be, and
Yeah.
whatever that is, that is.
Yeah. It's just awesome. It's awesome. Like, I don't even know if I can do it. Yeah. You kind of, when you play Lowell, though, you have to be an open G or open A. It's just like, it instantly becomes like, oh yeah, like super compressed in open A. It's unmistakable. That's the right sound. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is genuinely hard to play his guitar parts in this tuning or even E, which is tuned up higher, just because the open A, like all the shapes are the same, but it's all shifted up, I guess a fifth or a fourth. But the way that everything falls underneath your fingers, it just changes. It changes everything. So even though the shapes and the patterns are the same, it's, to play that Dixie Chicken line in even in E, which is a little bit easier, there's like all these like stratospheric high notes that are super hard to get, but a lot easier to get in open A. And I think it's like partially because the B string's tuned up to C sharp, so you got a little more range there, but then also the tension that comes from being tuned that way. Mm-hmm. There's just like there's an immediacy to open A that it's just not there in open E, D, or C. So when I made the Lowell record, I had a guitar that was dedicated to open A just to get some of those really classic licks. But it's such a brain smash for me to sort of like flip flop between tuning. So it'd be like when we did the open A guitars, it was like, okay, today we're gonna spend the day in open A and getting all these licks right. And then I'll go back to my regular tuning because I just can't do it. But yeah, all that to say, Dixie Chicken, pretty sweet song.
It is. And the big surprise on this list for me, which a song I was not familiar with at all, was Perfect Imperfection.
Oh yeah.
And that was like their later, near the end of his time.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I do think it was one of the last Feet records that he made, if not the last. I guess last record album was probably the last one, but I don't actually know chronologically. Somebody will know and correct me, but it was definitely in the latter part. And it was a record that we listened to so much as kids. It's off a record called Down on the Farm. Yep. And my mom used to sing along to the title track, and it had the first verses. They all asked about you down on the farm. The cows asked, the pigs asked, and the horses asked too. But when I was a kid, I thought they were saying the cows asked, the pigs asked, the horses asked too. And I was just like, oh, cool. I can swear as long as I'm singing along with this tune. So it's just like, again, it's a piece of my history. And again, on that documentary, it's like somebody said, yeah, what a piece of crap that record is. But I love it. And there's some weird tunes on it. Like it is a strange record. And I think it was kind of in the era where Bill Payne started doing more creatively. So there's a lot more synthesizers, a lot more adventurous harmony, because he's quite monstrous piano player, obviously. He was always a monster the entire time, but he really started to take the reins creatively. So things started to kind of take some turns.
And fun fact, Robin Ford plays on that record.
He does. He does. If you listen really carefully, you can hear it. I think he's mostly just a session guy on that record, but every now and then you hear a lick and you're like, if that's not Robin Ford, I'm a monkey's uncle.
Cool.
So you guys, don't be angry with me for this, but long before you were born, 1975, Little Feat opening for Poco in Eugene, Oregon. I was there.
Damn.
It was that was the only time that I saw Lowell. Yep, I still remember.
Yeah, that would have been incredible. I got to meet Bill Payne actually 3 or 4 years ago. We were playing a festival on Vancouver Island, and we were taking a shuttle from the hotel from the airport to the town where the festival was, and it was just us and this old guy and his tour manager, and we started talking, and really, really friendly guy. It's like kind of looked familiar, but also just he had a beard and couldn't tell, and introduced himself as Bill, and he's talking, and then at one point it was like, man, this guy's got to be somebody heavy, because he's referencing touring like some big places, like, oh yeah, back in 1970, this we I was in Japan, or I was there. It's like, you don't really do that kind of touring without being so anyways, we're paying attention, and then he lets loose, well, yeah, I used to tour in a pretty big band back in the day. I was like, well, who did you used to play with? Oh, I don't know if you'd ever heard of him, a band called Little Feat. I was like, what's your name again? My name's Bill. I'm like, hi, Bill Payne. It was just like, I immediately was, so freaked out. But he was really, really cool, and I got to say, like, your music is so important to me. It's so important to my family, and I'm really honored to shake your hand. And he was very, very kind. And every time I saw him over the weekend at the festival, he said hi and remembered my name and played his ass right off.
Yep.
It was crazy. I got to stand side stage. He was playing with a band called Leftover Salmon, bunch of really
Love Leftover
heavyweight
Salmon.
guys.
Yeah.
And Bill was playing with them at the time, and it was such a treat, such a treat.
I've played a couple festivals when he's been on there, and he has that feel that Dr. John is the same thing. Like when he plays a little lick, you're like, that's the sound of Little Feat in a way, is Lowell's guitar and Billy's keyboards.
Yeah. Oh, and Richie Hayward's drumming, there are some key elements that have to be there. I also got a completely different festival out west. I got to meet Fred Tackett, oh man, his name is escaping me. He passed away recently.
Paul.
What's that? Paul Barrere. Yeah.
Yep, Paul.
I got to meet them, and I weirded Paul out. I went too hard, because he wrote a lot of songs off of Down on the Farm, and wrote some of my favorite Feat tunes, and I gushed too hard on him, and he was like, "Oh, cool, man. I gotta go."
I will say that is
Wow.
the rig rundown that almost happened.
Oh, yeah?
I had it lined up. They were coming through town. I had it lined up. They were both going to be in on it, and I woke up that morning so sick that I had to cancel it, and it never happened.
Dang.
That Little Feat rig rundown was the one that almost was, So
The rundown
all
that got
we're
away.
Gonna wrap up this episode. We could talk about Lowell George and Little Feat for hours, but we're going to
Yes.
wrap it up for today, and we're going to have Joey back one more time this week to talk about songcraft and technology and all that fun stuff. So join us later this week with more from Joey Landreth.